Hey everyone, and welcome to another devlog for ModMasks, a 3D action VR game that I'm solo developing. On the screen right now, you can see a little title card I've made for this game since the release of the first devlog. I need to make a cover piece like this in order to set up a Steam page for the game eventually, and I think this devlog series could benefit from it as well. I doubt this will be the final version of this cover image, but would love any feedback on your thoughts of it. First off, before we get started, no, I did not lose any bets. If you know me personally, it's quite on brand for me to just grow my hair out and then just cut it all off. I love the feeling of a shaved head. So if you follow these devlogs, you'll probably see both versions of me, unless of course you end up hitting the unsubscribe button. For those who have not hit subscribe yet, feel free to go ahead and just click subscribe and then just immediately unsubscribe. I'd love to see how that affects the analytics and the algorithm. In the last devlog, we left off still in the dungeon scene. I was getting tired of spending all this time in these VR spaces while developing without any sound, so I decided to throw together a little beat so that it wasn't so quiet, and also so my social media posts aren't always quiet either. Another benefit in my mind is that the earlier I can start putting these ideas out there, the sooner I can get feedback. I want the music to fit in with the art and theme of the game, so I'm going for a space vibe with these sounds. I think that the sub bass in this one may fit that vibe. I'll let the loop play a couple times here. To bring all this experimentation together full circle with the first cage scene I built, I put the alien enemy and a new sword object with the same script into this scene to get a feel for what it would be like if you are in a dungeon solving puzzles, and then you turn the corner and have to fight some enemies. I also went and edited every frame of the animation from the alien asset I got to put the mask on him. I want to give these assets a bit of my own originality to them so they don't look like straight store-bought assets. I think it'd be pretty funny if all I did was slap masks on these characters. After all, it fits with the theme of the game. These enemy characters will get their power from the mod masks they are wearing. When you defeat them, you'll be able to physically pull their masks off and equip them onto yourself and gain whichever power is associated with that mask. At this stage, I also redesigned the equipped mask UI to no longer be a game object. Instead, I'm using a canvas with an image that's always there and becomes visible when you equip the mask, becoming the matching color. These videos only capture the top red bar of the UI, but when wearing the VR headset, there's both a top and bottom bar. I intend on changing this completely down the road, maybe making them rounded corners like in Horizon Forbidden West when you go into the power-up mode, but this will work just fine for the time being. At this point, I was ready to make a new scene to mix things up a bit. So far, I like the scale of this dungeon scene, but I don't think I really want this game to be all exclusively dungeon crawling. I feel like maybe there should be like 3 of these dungeons with boss fights at the end. These dungeon levels will be more focused on puzzle solving, while the levels leading up to them will be more like a first-person shooter where it's more focused on the combat. I also wanted to experiment with the scale of the levels so I can get a feel for the player movement in different environments. The loose story behind this new scene is the area of the planet where you land to begin your mission. So this could theoretically be the start of the game. I experimented with using the Unity terrain tool for the first time to create this sort of valley. I threw on a snow-like texture and actually really like the white and purple color palette going on here for this scene. I think it makes sense for the planet to be cold if there's a thin atmosphere you could see right through. Next, I created a few props using Asset Forge again to create a wall and a tower leading up to a cave. If this cave leads into the mines where materials are gathered to create ModMasks, then they would probably want to defend the entrance of this. I then also threw in a railroad track as that could be used to send materials deep into the mines to help with this operation, and also hopefully help direct the players on where they need to go. I also threw a little rocket ship model from opengameart.org to symbolize the starting area of the scene, but my personal favorite touch so far is the inclusion of the Stonehenge structure here. I think it'd be pretty funny if this is one of the first pieces of scenery the player sees at the beginning of the game, which would then have them expect that they will be encountering alien-like creatures, which will further help the monster assets I purchased to fit better into the game world. I'll probably also eventually hide a collectible in this location as well. I felt like the previous music loop felt a bit out of place in this scene as compared to the dungeon scene, so I had another music jam session night and created this new loop. As always, any feedback in these early stages of this project is appreciated. Besides combat and puzzle solving, I want to include various climbing sections throughout this game, as I think climbing is a very immersive mechanic in VR. I want to try to make this experience all around feel like it is meant for VR. It wouldn't feel as good if it was on another platform. And I think climbing sections will help with this. I made a tower object and used a ladder object from the AutoHands framework and just threw it all together to get a sense of scale. As you can see, this tower is way too tall for a straight ladder climb like this. I'll leave a full clip of this running as I talk so you can see just how long this climb takes in real time. It's pretty sad, but my arms are pretty tired after this climb and it's all around not very enjoyable. What I do like, however, is the view from the top of the tower. So if I revisit this idea in the future and design a proper climbing tower, I think I'll add more architectural aspects to the tower to include a mix of both climbing and platforming, which now gets me thinking of including a jump mechanic to the game, which is not included in the AutoHands framework at this time. If we're going to have platforming sections in the level design, then we are going to need to be able to jump. I'm not convinced that I did it the best way here, but I wasn't able to straight up apply upward force to this player controller, or at least I wasn't able to figure it out in a short amount of time. What I did find that worked was if I attached an invisible platform underneath the player that moved along with you, and then pressing the secondary button on the controller provides an upward force to that platform, which then pushes you up as if you're jumping. To be honest, I'm quite happy with how the jump feels, and had a bit of fun with it before I put in restrictions to not be able to jump in the air, but overall this design has many problems with it and I don't think it will be a long-term solution. For example, now you can totally escape the entire map, which would definitely influence the design constraints I would need when making levels. Also, you were able to jump while climbing the ladder, which should not be allowed. I created a tag to disable the jump when the invisible platform collides with an object with this tag, but that made it so I wasn't able to jump anywhere on this tower, as the tower is one single FBX file. A tag solution like this, if I decided to pursue it, would influence the design of the 3D objects I'll need to create for my levels. As you can see, even messing around with the sloppy implementation of this jump mechanic is already opening up so many questions I did not think of previously. The question is going to become, what's the best way to fix these issues? By fixing the jump mechanic, or with level design constraints? These are the type of questions I'm looking for in these early stages of development to form a long-term development plan. In terms of level design mechanics, I want to incorporate some kind of environmental puzzles throughout the experience. Ideally, I would like the puzzles to be unique to the VR experience. From a handful of other games I've tried out, I have seen many of these types of puzzles involving pulling levers, finding a missing wheel and then turning it, looking for codes to open doors and then having to type them in, etc. While I may include at least one of each of these types of puzzles somewhere throughout the game, I want to experiment with thinking outside of the box a bit. Given the current scene I'm creating, I have this wall that would have a gate or a barrier that only opens when equipment going in or out of the mine needs to pass through. When our player tries to infiltrate the mine, they clearly won't have the ability to unlock the gate. I was thinking for this opening scene, it may be more entertaining to blow a hole right through the wall. So I have this crack here that hopefully the player would notice. I was thinking of taking this a step further and design it such that the way to break the wall is not simply with a bomb, but an entire cannon that you can find at the top of the tower that's being used to defend the area. But how would the player get the cannon into a position so I could blow a hole in the wall? Well, just pick it up and toss it out the window. I made a post about this on Reddit and was actually encouraged to think even wackier than this. So please leave a comment below if this sounds like a fun idea or just plain dumb. I think the tricky part here would be how to make sure the player knows that they can pick up the cannon and throw it out the window. I suppose there would need to be a section earlier before this that shows you can pick up objects you normally think you would not be able to. Our main character here needs to feel strong. Another area I began exploring in this stage of development is the enemy AI. After all, combat is going to be a big factor of this game, so it needs to feel satisfying fighting these enemies. Starting with this alien model I've been messing around with, how should it attack the player? Fists, swords, guns? Since I already changed one of the animations to include the mask and the enemy drops the mask when attacked and defeated, I thought it would make sense if it attacked with the same power the mask offers the player when they equip it. This clearly still needs a lot of work, but just upscaling the fireball asset for the enemy made it pretty fun to try to block the attacks. I think there may be something here to work with once I eventually add player health and a death condition. The last main mechanic I experimented with at this point is the main player weapon. I don't want the player to ever be without a way to defeat enemies, as I think I want the mask power-ups to be limited time use items. So far, Swords have been the main weapon I've been working with, so I went with a behind the back sword spawn to get a weapon. I think it is more immersive if you actually have to hold the weapon rather than the VR games that have the sword static equipped to the player hand. As in real life, you should be able to drop the item you are holding if you let go of it. However, this creates a problem of losing your weapon if you drop it and never put it away. To resolve this, I think I'll incorporate into the story something along the lines of the player's suit is able to spawn these swords, maybe at the expense of some resource you can collect throughout the game that's fairly common. What I like about this flexibility is the player can choose if they want to use one sword or two swords, and then possibly mix and match them with the mask power-ups down the line to allow for a variety of playstyles. Tying the sword spawns to a resource should also encourage the player to hold onto their sword for as long as they can, but at the same time not feel too bad about tossing it to the ground and ditching it when they are done with it. I think this is a good spot to wrap up this devlog as it covers most of the mechanics I've been experimenting with and trying to incorporate into the design of this game. I'm still in the very early stages of development of this game, so I'd love to hear your thoughts about the mechanics, the art style, the music, and the story concepts thus far. Please leave a comment below, and make sure to hit the like and subscribe button to stay up to date on these devlogs. Don't forget you can also follow me on Twitter for the most up-to-date updates on this game. Thanks, and see you next time.